001. Latin.
A bene placito.
Translation, from one well pleased. Notes, that is, at will, or at one's pleasure. This phrase, and its Italian, bene placito, and Spanish, bene placito, derivatives, are synonymous with the more common ad libitum, at pleasure.
笔记即随意或随心所欲。这个短语及其对应的意大利语 bene placito 和西班牙语 bene placito 派生词与更常见的 ad libitum 乐意是同义词。
002. Latin.
A maiore ad minus.
Translation, from the greater to the smaller. Notes, from general to particular. What holds for all x also holds for one particular x.
Argumentum a fortiori.
笔记从一般到特殊，适用于所有 x 的东西，也适用于一个特定的 x。顺理成章的论证。
003. Latin.
A minore ad maius.
Translation, from the smaller to the greater. Notes, an inference from smaller to bigger, what is forbidden at least is forbidden at more, if riding a bicycle with 2 on it is forbidden, riding it with 3 on it is at least similarly punished.
笔记从小到大的推论，当某最少量时遭到禁止，则稍多量时亦遭禁止。如果禁止骑自行车时另在2人，那么当另在3人时，至少会受到同样的惩罚。
004. Latin.
A caelo usque ad centrum.
Translation, from the sky to the center. Notes, that is, from heaven all the way to the center of the earth. In law, it may refer to the proprietary principle of
Cuius est solum, eius est usque ad celum et ad inferos.
whosoever is the soil, it is his up to the sky and down to the depths of the earth.
笔记即从天堂一直到地心。在法律上，它可能指的是
Cuius est solum, eius est usque ad celum et ad inferos.
的专有原则，凡土地者，所在之处上气云霄下至极深，皆归其所有。
005. Latin.
A capite ad calcem.
Translation, from head to heel. Notes, that is, from top to bottom, all the way through, or, from head to toe. See also a pedibus usque ad capite.
笔记即从上到下，从头到尾或从头到脚。另见 a pedibus usque ad capite。
006. Latin.
A contrario.
Translation, from the opposite. Notes, that is, on the contrary, or au contraire. Thus, an argumentum a contrario, argument from the contrary, is an argument or proof by contrast or direct opposite.
笔记即相反或 au contraire。 因此 argumentum a contrario 相反的论证是通过对比或直接对立的论证或证明。
007. Latin.
A falsis principiis proficisci.
Translation, to set forth from false principles. Notes, legal phrase. From Cicero, De Finibus chapter 4 paragraph 53.
注：法律用语，来自西塞罗，论治善和治恶第4章第53段。
008. Latin.
A fortiori.
Translation, from the stronger. Notes, that is, even more so, or, with even stronger reason. Often used to lead from a less certain proposition to a more evident corollary.
注：即更是如此或有更强烈的理由。通常用于从不太确定的命题引出更明显的推论。
009. Latin.
A pedibus usque ad caput.
Translation, from feet to head. Notes, that is, completely, from tip to toe, from head to toe. Equally a capite ad calcem. See also abovo usque ad mala.
注：即完全，从头到脚，从头到脚，与 a capite ad calcem 同义。另见 ab ovo usque ad mala。
010. Latin.
A posse ad esse.
Translation, from being able to being. Notes, from possibility to actuality or from being possible to being actual.
注：从可能到现实或从可能到成为现实。
011. Latin.
A posteriori.
Translation, from the latter. Notes, based on observation, that is, empirical evidence. Opposite of a priori. Used in mathematics and logic to denote something that is known after a proof has been carried out. In philosophy, used to denote something known from experience.
注：基于观察及经验证据，与先验相反，在数学和逻辑中用于表示经过证明后已知的事物，在哲学中用于表示从经验中得知的事物。
012. Latin.
A priori.
Translation, from the former. Notes, presupposed independent of experience, the reverse of a posteriori. Used in mathematics and logic to denote something that is known or postulated before a proof has been carried out. In philosophy, used to denote something is supposed without empirical evidence. In everyday speech, it denotes something occurring or being known before the event.
注：预设独立于经验，后验的相反。在数学和逻辑中用于表示在进行证明之前已知或假设的事物。在哲学中用于表示没有经验证据的假设。在日常用语中，它表示在事件发生之前发生或已知的事情。
013. Latin.
A solis ortu usque ad occasum.
Translation, from sunrise to sunset. Notes, it can be interpreted as the sentiment of the monarch's dominion over lands across the world, similar to how the Spanish Empire and later the British Empire were called the empires on which the sun never sets.
注：它可被解作用来感受君主所统治的分布在世界各地的土地，类似于西班牙帝国和之后的大英帝国被称为日不落帝国。
014. Latin.
Ab absurdo.
Translation, from the absurd. Notes, set of an argument either for a conclusion that rests on the alleged absurdity of an opponent's argument compare appeal to ridicule, or that another assertion is false because it is absurd. The phrase is distinct from reductio ad absurdum, which is usually a valid logical argument.
注：表达一个论点，要么是基于反对者论点的所谓荒谬性得出的结论，参见诉诸嘲笑；要么是另一个断言是错误的，因为它是荒谬的。该短语与 reductio ad absurdum 不同，后者通常是一个有效的逻辑论证。
015. Latin.
Ab abusu ad usum non valet consequentia.
Translation, the inference of a use from its abuse is not valid. Notes, that is, a right is still a right even if it is abused, for example, practiced in a morally/ethically wrong way, compare abusus non tollit usum.
注：就是说，即使权力被滥用，例如以道德错误或伦理错误的方式实践，它仍然是一项权利。参见 abusus non tollit usum。
016. Latin.
Ab aeterno.
Translation, from the eternal. Notes, literally, from the everlasting, from eternity, or from outside of time. Philosophically and theologically, it indicates something, for example, the universe, that was created from outside of time. Sometimes used incorrectly to denote something, not from without time, but from a point within time, that is, from time immemorial, since the beginning of time or from an infinitely remote time in the past.
注：字面意思是来自永恒或来自时间之外。在哲学和神学上，它表明了一些东西，例如，宇宙是从时间之外创造的。有时错误地用于表示某事不是从时间之外，而是从时间中的某个点，即从远古时代开始，从时间产生时起，或来自过去无限遥远的时间。
017. Latin.
Ab antiquo.
Translation, from the ancient. Notes, that is, from ancient times.
注：换句话说，从远古时代。
018. Latin.
Ab epistulis.
Translation, from the letters. Notes, regarding or pertaining to correspondence. Ab epistulis was originally the title of the secretarial office in the Roman Empire.
注：关于通信。Ab epistulis 最初是罗马帝国秘书办公室的名称。
019. Latin.
Ab extra.
Translation, from beyond or without. Notes, legal term denoting derivation from an external source, as opposed to a person's self or mind, the latter of which is denoted by ab intra.
注：表示源自外部来源的法律术语，而不是一个人的自我或思想，后者由 ab intra 表示。
020. Latin.
Ab inc.
Translation, from here on. Notes, also sometimes written as ab hinc.
注：有时也写成 ab in。
021. Latin.
Ab imo pectore.
Translation, from the deepest chest. Notes, that is, from the bottom of my heart, with deepest affection, or sincerely. Attributed to Julius Caesar.
注：即从心底里怀着最深的感情或真诚的。出自尤利乌斯凯撒。
022. Latin.
Ab inconvenienti.
Translation, from an inconvenient thing. Notes, New Latin for, based on unsuitability, from inconvenience, or from hardship. An argumentum ab inconvenienti is one based on the difficulties involved in pursuing a line of reasoning, and is thus a form of appeal to consequences. The phrase refers to the legal principle that an argument from inconvenience has great weight.
注：新拉丁语基于不合适、不便或困难。不方便的争论是基于在进行推理过程中所涉及的困难，因此是一种诉诸后果的形式。该短语指的是法律原则，即因不便而提出的论点具有重大意义。
023. Latin.
Ab incunabulis.
Translation, from the cradle. Notes, that is, from the beginning or from infancy. Incunabula is commonly used in English to refer to the earliest stage or origin of something, and especially to copies of books that predate the spread of the printing press circa AD 1500.
注：即从一开始或从婴儿期。Incunabula 在英语中通常用于指代某事物的最早阶段或起源，尤其是指印刷机传播大约公元1500年之前的书籍副本。
024. Latin.
Ab initio.
Translation, from the beginning. Notes, that is, from the outset, referring to an inquiry or investigation. Ab initio mundi means, from the beginning of the world. In literature, it refers to a story told from the beginning rather than in medias res, from the middle. In science, it refers to the first principles. In other contexts, it often refers to beginner or training courses.
注：即从一开始，指的是查询或调查。Ab initio mundi 的意思是从创世起。在文学中，它指的是从头讲起的故事，而不是 in medias res 从中间。在科学中，它指的是第一性原理。在其他情况下，它通常指初学者或培训课程。
In law, it refers to a thing being true from its beginning or from the instant of the act, rather than from when the court declared it so. Likewise, an annulment is a judicial declaration of the invalidity or nullity of a marriage ab initio. The so-called marriage was no thing, Latin, nullius, from which the word nullity derives, and never existed, except perhaps in name only.
在法律上，它指的是一件事情从一开始或从行动的那一刻起就是真实的，而不是从法院宣布时开始。同样，废止是对婚姻从一开始就无效的司法声明，即所谓的婚姻是不存在拉丁语 nullius 无效一词的来源，并且从未存在过，不包括可能名存实亡的婚姻。
025. Latin.
Ab intestato.
Translation, from an intestate. Notes, that is, from a dead decedent, who died without executing a legal will, compare ex testamento.
注：即来自在没有执行合法遗嘱的情况下死亡的死者，参见 ex testamento。
026. Latin.
Ab intra.
Translation, from within. Notes, that is, from the inside, as opposed to ab extra, from without.
注：即从内部，而不是 ab extra 从外部。
027. Latin.
Ab invito.
Translation, against one's will, not of one's invitation. 028. Latin.
Ab irato.
Translation, from or by an angry person. Notes, more literally, from or by an angry man. Though the form irato is masculine, the application of the phrase is not limited to men. Rather, person is meant because the phrase probably elides homo, man/person, not vir, man. It is used in law to describe a decision or action that is motivated by hatred or anger instead of reason and is detrimental to those whom it affects.
注：字面意义上，来自一个愤怒的男人 man。虽然 irato 的形式是男性化的，但该短语的应用并不限于男性，而将其引申为人 person 是因为该短语可能省略了 homo 而不是 vir。它在法律中用于描述出于仇恨或愤怒而非理性的决定或行为，并且对受其影响的人有害。
029. Latin.
Ab origine.
Translation, from the source. Notes, that is, from the origin, beginning, source or commencement, or, originally. Root of the word aboriginal. 030. Latin.
Ab ovo.
Translation, from the egg. Notes, that is, from the beginning or origin. Derived from the longer phrase in Horace's satire Book 1 Talk 3, ab ovo usque ad mala, meaning, from the egg to the apples, referring to how ancient Roman meals would typically begin with an egg dish and end with fruit. Compare the English phrase soup to nuts. Thus, ab ovo means, from the beginning, and can connote thoroughness.
注：即从最初或起源，源自赫拉斯的讽刺诗集第1卷第3弹中较长的短语 ab ovo usque ad mola， 意思是从鸡蛋到苹果，指的是古罗马用餐通常以鸡蛋菜肴开始并以水果结束，参见英语短语汤到坚果。因此 ab ovo 的意思是从一开始，可以表示彻底。
031. Latin.
Ab senza eres non erit.
Translation, an absent person will not be an heir. Notes, legal principle that a person who is not present is unlikely to inherit. Sometimes it is also translated as, out of sight, out of mind or, absence does not make the heart grow fonder.
注：不在场不继承的法律原则，有时也被翻译为眼不见心不烦或距离并不会产生美。
032. Latin.
Absente reo.
Translation, with, the defendant being absent. Notes, legal phrase denoting action, in the absence of the accused.
注：表示在被告缺席的情况下采取行动的法律用语。
033. Latin.
Absit injuria.
Translation, absent from injury. Notes, that is, no offense, meaning to wish that no insult or injury be presumed or done by the speaker's words. Also rendered as absit injuria verbis, let injury be absent from these words. Compare. Absit invidia.
注：即无冒犯，意思是希望说话者的言论不会被臆断成或造成侮辱或伤害，也呈现为 absit injuria verbis， 让这些词中没有伤害。参见 absit invidia。
034. Latin.
Absit invidia.
Translation, absent from envy. Notes, as opposed to no offense, absit invidia is said in the context of a statement of excellence, to ward off envious deities who might interpret a statement of excellence as hubris. Also extended to absit invidia verbo, may ill will/envy be absent from these words. Compare absit injuria verbis.
注： 与不冒犯相反。absit invidia 是在卓越声明的背景下说的，以防止嫉妒的神明可能将卓越声明解释为傲慢。也扩展到 absit invidia verbal 这些词中可能没有恶意、嫉妒。参见 absit inuria verbis。
035. Latin.
Absit omen.
Translation, absent from omen. Notes, that is, let this not be a bad omen, expressing the hope that something ill-boding does not turn out to be bad luck in the future.
注：即别让这个成为一个坏兆头，表达了希望不祥之兆在未来不会变成厄运。
036. Latin.
Absolutum dominium.
Translation, absolute dominion. Notes, that is, total or supreme power, dominion, ownership, or sovereignty.
注：即总的或最高的权利、统治、所有权或主权。
037. Latin.
Absolvo.
Translation, I absolve. Notes, legal term pronounced by a judge in order to acquit a defendant following their trial. Te absolvo or absolvo te, I forgive you, is said by Roman Catholic priests during the sacrament of confession, prior to the Second Vatican Council and in vernacular thereafter.
注：法官在审判后宣布被告无罪的法律条款。Te absolvo 或 absolvo te， 我原谅你，是罗马天主教神父在第二次梵蒂冈大公会议之前的忏悔圣事期间以及之后的白话中说的。
038. Latin.
Abundans cautela non nocet.
Translation, abundant caution does no harm. Notes, that is, one can never be too careful.
注：即再怎么小心也不为过。
039. Latin.
Abuno disce omnes.
Translation, from one, learn all. Notes, refers to situations in which a single example or observation indicates a general or universal truth. Coined in Virgil, Aeneid Book 2 line 65.
注：指的是单个例子或观察表明了普遍或通用真理的情况。本短语出自维吉尔的《埃涅阿斯纪》第2卷第65行。
040. Latin.
Ab urbe condita.
Translation, from the founding of the city. Notes, that is, from the founding of Rome, which occurred in 753 BC, according to Livy. It was used as a referential year in ancient Rome from which subsequent years were calculated, prior to being replaced by other dating conventions. Also anno urbis conditi auc, literally, in the year of the founded city.
注：即根据李维的说法，从罗马的建立开始发生在公元前753年。它曾在古罗马被用作参考年份来计算之后的年份，后来被其他纪年方法所取代。同样的还有 anno urbis conditi auc， 字面意思是建成之年。
041. Latin.
Abusus non tollit usum.
Translation, misuse does not remove use. Notes, the misuse of something does not eliminate the possibility of its correct use. Compare. Ab abusu ad usum non valet consequentia.
注：某些东西的误用并不能消除其正确使用的可能性。参见
Ab abusu ad usum non valet consequentia.
042. Latin.
Ab utili.
Translation, from utility. 043. Latin.
Abissus abissum invocat.
Translation, deep calleth unto deep. Notes, from Psalms 42, line 7, some translations have sea calls to sea.
注：来自诗篇第42首第7行，有时译作大海呼唤大海。
044. Latin.
Accipe hoc.
Translation, take this. Notes, motto of the 848 Naval Air Squadron, British Royal Navy.
注：英国皇家海军第848海军航空中队的队训格言。
045. Latin.
Accusare nemo se debet nisi coram deo.
Translation, no one ought to accuse himself except in the presence of God. Notes, legal principle denoting that an accused person is entitled to plead not guilty, and that a witness is not obligated to respond or submit a document that would incriminate himself. A similar phrase is nemo tenetur se ipsum accuser, no one is bound to accuse himself.
注：法律原则表明，被告人有权不认罪，证人没有义务作出回应或提交证明自己有罪的文件。一个类似的短语是
Nemo tenetur se ipsum accusare.
没有人必须指责自己。
046. Latin.
Acta Deus nunquam mortalia fallunt.
Translation, mortal actions never deceive the gods. Notes, derived from Ovid, Tristia, Book 1 Part 2, line 97.
Si tamen acta Deus nunquam mortalia fallunt, a culpa facinus scitis ab esse mea.
Yet if mortal actions never deceive the gods, you know that crime was absent from my fault.
注：出自奥维德的哀怨集第1卷第2部分第97行。
Si tamen acta Deus nunquam mortalia fallunt, a culpa facinus scitis ab esse mea.
然而，如果凡人的行为永远无法欺骗众神，那么你知道犯罪不是我的错。
047. Latin.
Acta est fabula plaudite.
Translation, the play has been performed, applaud. Notes, common ending to ancient Roman comedies, Suetonius claimed in the 12 Caesars that these were the last words of Augustus. Sibelius applied them to the third movement of his string quartet No. 2, so that his audience would recognize that it was the last one, because a fourth would be ordinarily expected.
注：古罗马喜剧的共同结局，苏埃托尼乌斯在《罗马12帝王传》中声称这是奥古斯都的遗言，西贝柳斯将其应用到他的第2弦乐4重奏的第3乐章中，这样他的观众就会意识到这已经是最后一乐章，因为一般情况下观众会以为还有第4乐章。
048. Latin.
Acta non verba.
Translation, deeds not words. Notes, motto of the United States Merchant Marine Academy.
注：美国商船学院的校训。
049. Latin.
Acta sanctorum.
Translation, deeds of the saints. Notes, also used in the singular preceding a saint's name, acta sancti, deeds of saint, name, a common title of hagiography works.
注：其单数形式也用于单个圣人的名字之前 ，acta sancti 圣人的事迹加上圣人的名字，乃圣徒传记作品的通称。
050. Latin.
Actiones secundum fidei.
Translation, action follows belief. Notes, i.e., we act according to what we believe ourselves to be.
注：即我们根据我们所相信的我们自己行事。